All right, so when it comes to video to creating classes within Python, so exciting. It's actually pretty straightforward, but then we're going to make it complicated as time progresses. So here is the syntax of creating a user. Let's do user first, okay? I'm not going to do items. Y'all going to do items. And you're also going to finish a user as well. But when it comes to actually creating this class, the very first thing that we can do is utilize this function within Python called class user, okay? And all we are doing is just creating the class. We utilize this function called pass just so that the computer knows to continue going because we haven't created anything really grandeur regarding this specific class yet. We haven't said the attributes, nor have we set the methods. Okay, that's what we're going to be creating here and within the class. So when I run this, I'm not going to get an error. Okay, so when you run it on your end, you're not going to get an error. Okay, let it take its time. It's trying to remember who I am. Okay, it finally remembered who I am. Okay, so when I ran it, no error should occur. You should not get an error unless you spell something wrong. So that's fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do is make a user. We're gonna make a user by just passing information into the class. Okay, but first let's just make it. Okay, so let's scroll down and here's the code. User1. Okay, user underscore equals user. Okay, this is just the syntax. This is how you create the user. Okay, and once we're going to create another user. Okay, and I can print, when I print this statement, when I actually print this information, it's just going to give me the memory location of where I'm storing the user. It's not because I didn't do anything with the user. Just the memory location. And if you haven't seen this before, now you've seen it. Okay, this is what the memory allocation looks like. Okay, that's fine. Cool beans. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually put some information within the user. We're going to put some information. Let's say Alice and Bob. Okay, Alice and Bob. Okay, Alice and Bob. Okay. So here's the information, and this is the syntax. This is the syntax of actually creating a user. Okay, and so by us actually doing this, one could argue that we are creating an object. We're creating an object. One could argue that we did an object. We're creating an object here because I forgot to say that. These are objects. Okay. Are aka instances of our user. A lot of vocabulary. All right, so here we are legitimately creating Alice, setting Alice's name to be, setting user's name to be Alice and email to be Alice at example, so on for Bob. And so when I print this, this is what we get. Fine, fantastic. Fine, fantastic. However, you can imagine when a human does this or a computer does this, some issues can arise. So it would be better if we legitimately had a format of actually putting the information into a class or creating the class or initiating the class with this said information, name and email. Okay? So how do we do that? What we do is we create a constructor within that class. We create a constructor within that class. And this is what it will look like. Instead of using pass now, we define the method initiate, which is our constructor underscore int underscore. Then we start off. And we utilize this idea called the self, which is just the class in and of itself. And so now we have self.name is equal to name. So whatever is stored, whatever is passed in to this method, it's stored into self.name. Whatever is stored into email, this email is then stored into self.name. Okay, so let's actually utilize this instead of using what we just did before in terms of people can have different kind of formats and things of that regard. What we can do is utilize it in this particular manner. So it's going to be user Alice, comma Alice's email is going to be set into user one, and then so same thing for Bob. So then what I can do is now print user's email. I can now print user one email. So this is what it looks like. I did it for user one and user two. Okay. So it's the same thing, but it allows us to have a formulaic way of actually inputting the information into the class. All right. Great. Fantastic. With that being said, what we're going to do now is add a method to our class. So you know how we have different methods. We have attributes and methods. And this is how we go about doing that. So with regards to this code, we still have the same class. We still have the same class, which is fine. However, and also the same constructor initiate, right? And then with regards to this particular method, we're logging in. This is not how you log into a system. This is not how you log into a system. This is a placeholder, okay? Logging into a system is more complicated. And we will kind of do that, maybe kind of do that this summer. But most likely not. But what is nice here is that when we have our user, and we have their name, right? Okay. You can grab their name and say that this particular person's, this is a temperate literal, pronouncing that wrong. We're going to take whatever that person's name and plug it into this element here. Return, we're going to return Alice is logged in, okay? Or Bob's logged in based off of whatever their user information is stored. All right, so let's test it out. Let's test out this method. So we're going to set, I technically didn't have to do these two lines because we already did it before, but here we are. Okay, so when I print out user.login parentheses, this should say Alice, right? Alice is logged in. So let's go ahead and run this, then run this. Alice is logged in. So let's do a recap. So you learned about creating a constructor within a class, which allows you to have the attributes for all the users. And then you also learned about creating a method within that class and utilizing a method such as login. And again, as I mentioned earlier, login is a little bit more complicated than what we showed, but it is what it is. I wanted to, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, yeah. We initiated a class. And this is the first time us using Python. Yay. All right, good job.